Okay, guys, we're going to talk about the organ systems now. There are 11 in the human body, and an organ system is simply an organ or multiple organs that all work together to do one thing. And hopefully, you'll see by the end of this little PowerPoint what I'm talking about. The integumentary system is one that we will see here in A&P 1, Anatomy and Physiology 1. Its function is to protect the inside of our body from the outside world, the environment, from injury, from infection, to keep the bad guys out. We also use it to maintain our balance of water. We would dehydrate very quickly and die without our skin to do that job for us. We use it to help us to dump heat or to retain heat. We sweat in the summer and in the wintertime, we take these blood vessels. I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. We take those blood vessels and constrict them so that we keep the blood from flowing through this region, and that helps us to retain heat. We use it to store fats. This is for a rainy day. It's calories that we put up. Excretion, we get rid of some of our urea through our sweat, not all of it goes out in the urine. Cutaneous sensation, we have nerve endings to let us know about hot, cold, pain, temperature of all kinds, movement, pressure, slight touch. Our skin also, with 20 minutes of sunshine a day, makes vitamin D. The integumentary system is going to include the hair, the skin, the nails, and these cutaneous glands right there and right there. We'll talk more about that when we actually do that, and we will be doing that in A&P1. Skeletal system, we will do this in A&P1 as well. What does it do? It provides a mechanical support. It's with our muscles right here, attaching here and here. It allows us to move this arm. So anytime you flex your arm, it's the biceps and the brachialis muscle. We'll talk more about that. The bones also store mineral. Almost all the calcium in our body and a good part of the magnesium is locked up in the bones. And if we need calcium, if our blood calcium levels get low, we actually take it out of the bones. The bone marrow, the empty hollow places in here, are where the cells that give rise to all of our blood cells, both the white protective cells and the red cells. So the skeletal system is going to include the bones and the cartilage. That's stuff on the ends of the bones that helps them. And then the ligaments, which are very tough, fibrous, and those are what actually holds the bones together. The thing that attaches the muscles to a bone is called a tendon, but the thing that attaches two bones together to keep them from coming apart is a ligament. I know we're all used to seeing skeletons fully articulated like this, but in actuality, once a person dies, those ligaments will deteriorate and the bones just come apart. Muscular system, this is the guy that gives us the ability to move, to hold us upright, to give us balance. And we do this by contracting, making our muscles shorter, and extension, making them longer. The muscles can only pull, they can't push. We'll talk more about this. This is one we will do in Anatomy and Physiology 1, 2. And that controls body openings, the mouth, the anus, the urinary sphincters. These are all controlled by muscles. Heat production. In the wintertime, when you're cold, you shiver. When your muscles do that rhythmic contraction, it actually generates heat and makes you warmer. The muscular system is going to include 3 types of muscle. There is a cardiac muscle, which is only in the heart. Smooth muscle, which is involuntary, and then the skeletal muscle, which is our voluntary, that moves the bones of our skeleton. All right, guys, let's go on to the next one. Nervous system. This will be the last of Anatomy and Physiology 1. This is the guy that's going to be able to detect all that. Those nerve endings, that's what they do. They detect what's outside of us. They also detect what's going on inside of us. These guys speak to the brain very quickly. They're involved in coordination. They're involved in controlling the skeletal muscles. The skeletal muscle, all muscles, with the exception of the heart, is under control from the brain. So the nervous system is going to be the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that come off there, and ganglia, which are nerve bodies that are outside the nervous system. We will talk about that later. The endocrine system, this is the first thing you're going to talk about in A&P2. This is the guy that produces the hormones and puts them into the blood. These guys communicate with the cells and with glands by chemicals internally. This is going to include such things as the pituitary gland, which is right here, the pineal gland, which is there, thyroid, thymus gland. These two guys right here are the adrenal glands sitting on top of the kidneys. This is the guy that makes insulin. And of course the gonads, the male testes and the female ovaries. All right, guys. Cardiovascular system. It's going to consist of two different organs, the heart and the blood vessels. That's kind of, hopefully that helps you see what an organ system is. These guys, their function is to distribute nutrients like blood sugar, amino acids, what have you. They circulate the gases we need, oxygen. They pick up our waste products and take it to the appropriate place. They provide transport for hormones, electrolytes, which are going to be things like sodium, chlorine. We'll talk more about those in the lecture. They're going to have a lot to do with heat, especially if we have too much and dumping it. We're going to take that to the skin. The white blood cells, the guys that take care of us, the immune cells, and the antibodies, which go along with them, are all going to be transported via the blood. Fluid, electrolyte, and then acid-base balance. The blood is going to help us to regulate the amount of water. Too much and we're in trouble. Too little, we're in trouble. Same thing with the electrolytes. Acid-base, our blood cannot be too acidic or too alkaline or it will kill us. The heart, the arteries, veins, and capillaries, which are part of the vascular system, are all part of this cardiovascular. Lymphatic and immune system, this is the guys that's going to protect us. Now, these guys are kind of more like a functional system. They're kind of spread all over the body, but they are a system because they work together. These guys are going to help us to pick up excess fluid out of our tissues and put it back into the blood. These guys are going to produce and train those white cells that we need. This is going to include the thymus, which we talked about as part of the endocrine, the spleen, which is over here on the left side, the lymph nodes. If you've ever had swollen glands, as it's commonly called, those are actually lymph nodes. The tonsils in the back of the mouth and the nose. Lymphatic vessels, these are separate from the blood vessels. And in the appendix that we talked about being right over here, they're not showing it there, but that's okay. Respiratory system, it's going to be the lungs and the airways, and we'll talk more about that in a second. The respiratory system enables us to talk. The respiratory system exchanges gas, brings oxygen in, and takes carbon dioxide out, which is really important for a lot of reasons. Acid-base balance, well, you'll talk more about that in Anatomy and Physiology 2. The components of this system are going to be the lungs and then the airways. the bronchi, which are the big ones right here, the trachea, which is this main pipe going up, the bronchioles, which are tiny um, pipes that come off the larger pipes, the alveoli, which are these air sacs at the very end of the bronchioles, the nose, um, the pharynx and the larynx. The pharynx is this area behind the nose, behind the mouth, and right up here. The larynx is this area right here. You'll talk more about that in AMP2 as well. Digestive system, one big tube that goes from the mouth to the anus. The tube gets kind of ballooned out here. It gets kind of twisty and turny, but essentially it is one big long tube. We take in food here, it gets broken down mechanically and chemically. We absorb what we want, and what's left over we get rid of through the anus. We have accessory organs that help us, like the liver, and the pancreas is also part of the GI system. The esophagus, which is the tube that leads from the back of the mouth through to the stomach. Liver functions, the liver is going to do metabolism. In other words, it has a lot to do with our body chemistry. It's going to make a lot of the proteins we use in our plasma. It's going to detoxify drugs and other kinds of poisons. It's going to get rid of excess hormones. It's going to have a lot to do with cleaning the blood, although the spleen is really maybe a little bit better at that. So what does it include? The teeth, the tongue, the stomach, the esophagus, the mouth, pharynx, both intestines, the rectum, the anus, liver, pancreas, salivary glands right here that makes the saliva, and the gallbladder that hangs off the liver. Urinary system eliminates waste. It also has a lot to do with keeping the amount of fluid in our blood vessels and the amount of blood pressure we have. This again is an anatomy and physiology 2 topic. This is the one that's going to give the go signal to make more red blood cells. The kidneys are going to have a lot to say about how much water is in your system, how about those electrolytes, and also the pH. They're going to have some detoxification. They're going to urinate a lot of the stuff that we don't want out. So this system is going to include the kidneys. The ureters are the tubes that lead from the kidneys to the bladder. And there's the urinary bladder. And also the urethra, which is the tube that leads from the bladder to the outside world. Reproductive system, for the male, fairly simple. The testes is going to make, we'll just call it make. It's going to make the sperm cells and going to have these guys go up and around. They're going to go through the seminal vesicle. Right there it is. Where they're going to gain some fluid. Then they're going to go down into the prostate gland, where they're going to pick up some more fluid. And finally, they're going into the urethra, where they'll be ejaculated into the female vagina in an attempt to have a baby made. So the testicles are the glands here. They're the gonads for the male. The vas deferens is this tube that leads from the testicles to the seminal vesicles. The bulbourethral glands right here, they're going to produce a fluid that's necessary to help us. And then, of course, the urethra, which is also part of the urinary system, is dual purpose. Female reproductive system, its function is to produce eggs and to nurture those eggs for 9 months. And there's the uterus, where if everything happens right, the new child is going to implant and grow until it's time for birth. So the mom is going to take care of it. It's going to give birth. After birth, mom is going to breastfeed the baby with milk she produces in her mammary glands. These ovaries, let's see if we can find them right over there, are going to produce the female sex hormones. Oh, I should have told you, the testes are going to make testosterone. Uh, the ovaries are going to make estrogen and progesterone. The female system is going to include those ovaries, that uterus, the tubes that lead to them. I don't know. There they are, fallopian tubes that leads from the uterus to the ovaries, uh, fallopian or uterine tubes. The vulva, which is the outside external genitalia. The vagina, which is the tube, muscular tube that leads to the uterus. And then, of course, the mammary glands. Well, that's it on this one, guys. I'll see you on the next one.